So I've had a lot of people ask me this question recently. They've asked me, I want to start homesteading, but I have no clue where to begin. And yes, that can be a really scary thought because it can be overwhelming. You have this idea of living off land and you want to have your own garden, livestock. There's lots of different possibilities for how to homestead. With that said, you really have to ask yourself, what is the main goal or goals for someone starting to homestead? If it's living a more sustainable lifestyle, then you need to figure that out. If you want to raise animals such as livestock, I have goats, but if you want to raise cows, chickens, or any other type of livestock, you need to factor that in for what type of homestead and where you want to live in the country. And another important question is you want to ask yourself, what type of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to live closer to amenities, or do you want to live up in the mountains and you want to have complete privacy and land to do things that you want to do? Hey guys, if you haven't followed me already, give my channel a follow, subscribe, and give this a thumbs up. It greatly helps the algorithm and it helps support my content. I'm Angie. I'm a homesteader. I live completely off-grid on 52 acres in Vermont. And just a side note, our homestead is currently on the real estate market, so if you want a turnkey homestead that's up in the mountains, you do have plenty of land to build, to garden. There's ATV trails, hiking trails. The vast snowmobile trail actually runs through the property, and that area right there where there's fencing, there's over 50 established blueberry bushes. It's fenced in because I have goats on the property and I don't want my goats eating my blueberries. So if you're interested in a turnkey homestead that is completely off-grid, fully sustainable, and the awesome part is you have excellent Wi-Fi here. So if you're a remote worker, or if you just want a retreat where you can look at those mountains from every view in the house and the studio down below, definitely this is a rare opportunity. So if you want to inquire about that, I have my email under my bio. Send me an email. I am more than happy to talk to you guys about that. So you have to determine what type of lifestyle you want to live. Now, you also have to ask yourself, do you mind the cold? In Vermont, we do get colder winters. But for our house, we have a woodstock soapstone wood stove that keeps the house nice and toasty. Is around 73 to 75 degrees, and it heats the entire house. So no more fuel oil bills, because we know the price of gas is getting more expensive. So being able to cut your own firewood, or actually down the road about 2 miles from our house is a logger who will cut and split wood and deliver it here. He actually doesn't charge a delivery fee because it's so close. So if you don't mind winter, or if you like skiing, snowmobiling, things like that, then New England can be a fantastic place to homestead. We also get all 4 seasons, and I tell you, the foliage, seeing the mountains over there, it is absolutely gorgeous. The fall is my favorite time of year. But what if you don't like the winter? Well, then you want to probably look where there's less snow and it isn't as cold. So states like North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and some people really like a desert type atmosphere. So Arizona, even some areas of Colorado can be really interesting depending on where you go. There are lots of different ways to homestead. And also keep in mind, if you're planning to have a garden, mindful of growing seasons. And in New England, if you get a greenhouse, that actually can help extend your growing season. So that is definitely a possibility. So I've had people ask, well, what do I do first? Do I buy land? Do I build? Do I find something that already has a house on it? And you have to ask yourself what type of lifestyle you want to live. If you want livestock, if you want to build a garden, do you mind the cold weather? Ask yourself that. Also look into taxes, because property taxes will vary from state to state. And the other thing you definitely want to look into is zoning. In Vermont, there are some towns that do have zoning, or the town that I specifically live in has no zoning. I prefer no zoning, no HOA, because I don't have any type of government or town basically telling us how we can use our land. And to us, that is an important thing for us. But I love Vermont. I've lived in Vermont my entire life. And it is an awesome place to homestead, because the spring and summer months, and even the fall, are my favorite. I am not so keen on winter. It is absolutely gorgeous here. I'll probably just put a photo here of what it can look like in the winter time. But as I've gotten older, I want to be where it's a little bit warmer. That's my personal preference. So it really is an individual decision what you want to do. Some people don't mind buying land and building slowly. If you're trying to avoid having a mortgage, then that probably may be the way to go. But you can have a mortgage, and you can live off grid and have a mortgage. That's basically what we did. Is my husband had land. He used the land as collateral to get a construction loan. Then after the house was built, the construction loan converted into a mortgage, so the interest rate dropped significantly, which is a plus. And then it went into a regular mortgage. So you can get mortgages on off-grid homes. Usually, like, credit unions are a little more lenient for off-grid properties, but they definitely do have loans for them. Or some people want to homestead and they want to live on the grid, which is completely fine. You don't need 52 acres to start homesteading. Some people think you need a ton of land to start living this lifestyle. And you have to decide if you want to live on the grid or off the grid. It's a very personal decision. I prefer living off the grid because I like having a zero electric bill. And actually, that whole solar setup has paid for itself. My husband's owned it for 8 years, going on 9 years. And the cost of the initial investment of installing the solar is now paid off. So it is definitely worth it. And the other benefit that people forget about living off grid is when people have snowstorms or rainstorms, and power lines are out and you don't have power for days. Some people do have battery backups, which I always recommend, whether you're on grid or off grid. We do have a generator that comes with the house, and we just turn on the generator and boom, you have power. That definitely is a perk, and I think people forget about that if you're relying on the grid for your power. So if you have an idea of a couple of different areas of the country that you may want to homestead in or start a farm, I encourage you to take a short weekend trip, or 3 or 4 days, and visit that state. Visit a few areas that you think you may want to start homesteading. Contact some realtors. Ask to go see some property. Even if you aren't per se actively looking, I mean, you sort of are. You're gathering data. Maybe you could rent, a vacation rental and get an idea of what the areas are like. I highly encourage it, because when you find an area, a state, a property that you just fall in love with, you definitely will know. And the other thing I highly recommend for people to do is, if you can, visit an area a couple times, different times through the year, if you can. I know some people are very restricted with how much time they get off. Some people will also buy land sight unseen. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend visiting a state or an area, walk the land, because you will get so much information just by physically being there. But I do understand some people will go and buy land without even seeing it. And speaking of land, some people will buy land sight unseen. I don't recommend it, but I know some people will do that. There's a couple of different financing options as well. If you can pay cash up front, that's ideal, but not everybody has a whole bunch of cash, especially right now. There are some financing options. There's like billyland.com. If you're looking at Tennessee, there's a company called Landstruck. So LAND struck.com. It's a very small company, but they don't do credit checks. It's a small down payment, and you can buy land, I think anywhere from half an acre, and they go up to about 20 acres, I think. And they have property all over Tennessee. I believe this company is looking to expand in other states. But I have a friend that got their land financed through them. It's a relatively inexpensive process. So if you're looking at Tennessee specifically, that is an option. Another option is billyland.com. I am not sponsored by any of these companies. I'm just letting you know that they exist, and it can be worth looking into. With billyland.com, it's basically like an auction. You are placing a bid for a down payment, and then you can finance the remainder balance of the land. And they disclose the terms, conditions right on their website. Billyland.com, like I said, landstruck.com. You can also Google basically land for sale by owner or seller financing. So those can be options as well. But some people don't want to, buy land and build. Maybe they want to get a regular mortgage, or they want a house and they want to live off grid. It is possible to buy a home that is currently connected to the grid, and you can disconnect it. I'm not saying with every house. Consult an electrician first, but you could consult an electrician and see if it's possible to disconnect the house and basically build a solar array and connect it to your solar system. So that definitely is a possibility. And to get started, like I said, you don't need 52 acres. We like having the acreage because we do some gardening, we have livestock, and we like having the privacy and room to expand. So for us, I actually have a couple apple trees planted down by the garden. We've got blueberries. There are lots of opportunities with this property. You could even build like a small hip camp or Airbnb on the property. But if you're looking to start out homesteading or owning a small farm, if you get a house with a couple of acres, you can definitely garden. You can get backyard chickens. Now, I will say, please look into, if you're buying a conventional house, some towns have ordinances on livestock, chickens, like even how many chickens you can own. So definitely look into that where you're looking to move. The fortunate part where I live, there's no zoning, there's no restrictions like that. But it is often something that people forget to look into. They get so excited about the land, purchase it, and then find out, oh my gosh, I can't do what I want to do with my land. The other thing is some people will want to do rainwater collection or put in a composting toilet, things like that. Or, if the property comes with a well and septic, those are all things you want to consider. This house has an artesian well and a 1,500-gallon septic already installed. Like I said, this is basically like a normal house, it's just off grid. It's fully turnkey. Some people prefer that. Some people want to build their systems themselves. My advice is, if you are building things from scratch, do your solar first if you can, or some type of shelter. Some people will buy a camper or a yurt as they're building their house. But you want to build systems first: solar, rainwater collection, your house, or some type of shelter. You want to get animals last if possible. The reason behind that is when people try to do everything all at once, it gets super frustrating and it can be too much, too fast. People get burnt out and then they just want to quit. Even if you start small, so you buy a small homestead or a small house, 1 or 2 acres, and then you can get a feel for like gardening, things like that, prior to leaping into a bigger property. But it's all up to your personal preference. And the other thing I cannot stress enough is do your research. Look at other homesteaders on a large scale, a small scale, and look for homesteaders that live in a state that you potentially want to move to, because they can show what the area looks like, some of the challenges they faced. And I have learned so much by following Off-Grid Homesteaders. I think you guys know who I'm friends with, but I've been following his channel forever. And yes, I'm personal friends with him as well, and his girlfriend, and they have been a wealth of information. I hope that gave you some ideas of where you could start looking for information on how to start homesteading or farming. You don't need a huge area to start out. And if you have any further questions, feel free to drop it in the comments. My husband Chris and I are happy to answer whatever questions we can to the best of our ability. And if you're interested in, homesteading in New England specifically, or if you want to inquire about our own homestead that's currently on the market, check out my bio. I have an email address. You can email me directly or drop a comment in here. We're happy to answer questions that you may have. And thank you so much, everyone, for engaging with my content. And I will see you in the next video.